Alright, so that last one ended awkwardly. I didn't realize I was out of slides. But anyway, this is the Dwarfs turn 3. You can see that he took his Ironbreakers and his Slayer and went ahead and charged my fast cav unit. You can see the organ gun crew was down to 2, so apparently I did 1 wound. I outnumbered. He didn't do any wounds. He passed a stubborn 9, so it worked out the way I'd hoped it would when I rushed in there, so we'll see what that offers. Obviously he hasn't fought yet, because when the fighting is done, there's no way that fast cav unit's going to be around. Nice blurry picture, close-up of what I keep on referring to as my weird fast cav charge. And there we have it. Fast cav is dead, but I like my situation. I'm still locked in combat on the left-hand side with his flank, but I have just a whole lot of options, and I like that his Ironbreakers are turned with their flank to my side of the board. So you can see my charges that I called. I took, starting at the upper right, I took that small unit of Knights Errant and charged them into his organ gun. I had my Grail Knights and my big unit of Knights of the Realm with my BSB. Both of them are making a frontal charge into that Warriors unit. I think I'm going to crush them, and if I do, the Grail Knights will overrun into a Slayer, and the BSB unit will overrun into the front of his Ironbreakers. And much to the dismay of my opponents, the big Knights Errant unit is just going to run right around his Warriors unit and slam into the side of that Ironbreakers. I probably had another half-inch to spare. I had to wheel a little bit to get around his Warriors and then go straight, and by the time I got there, I had to go all the way to really the front of the side of his unit, but I made it, and so there was that. You'll see on the far left, I have those Pegasus Knights who rallied are going to charge the bolt thrower. They end up failing that charge by about 2 inches. And on the right-hand side, my general is charging into the flank of that minor unit that came up behind my trebuchet. You can see my trebuchet crew fled and almost got in the way of my my BSB unit, but I got lucky there. There's another look at the board with all the arrows for the charges. And that is me moving in. You can see on the upper right, the Knights of the Realm unit ended up killing the rest of his bolt thrower crew on his turn, so I was able to charge in on my turn to give that Pegasus Knight some support. And you can see on the lower right how my trebuchet crew has rallied now. And the bottom, my men-at-arms unit is coming up to try to support that battle. So after fighting on my right flank, his left flank, we beat the Thunderers. The Pegasus Knight chased him down and destroyed him. My general, he's not really equipped to handle rank and file, so he's not really beating these guys. He's getting a wound or 2 every time and just really hanging out with them for the rest of the game. So you can see we've got my right flank completely cleared. We've destroyed his warrior unit. I've overrun into the Ironbreakers and the Slayer the way I thought. My small Knights Errant unit on the upper left, they beat the organ gun and overran into the Thunderers, which allowed them to get a charge without having to take a stand and shoot reaction, which was nice. So I come in with a 9 strong unit of Errant in the flank and a full 8 or 9 man unit of Knights of the Realm with my BSB in the front, and with all that I was only able to get 3 wounds. I mean, those Ironbreakers just don't die. But nevertheless, he got 1 wound on me, so I had 2 extra wounds. I had a flank, I had 2 ranks, and I had the BSB giving me an extra standard more than what he has. So I won combat by 6. He has a leadership of 9. They needed a 3 or better to stand, and my son rolled a 3. I almost grounded him right there. So now I'm really worried. I thought I was so clever in setting up the charges on that Ironbreaker unit the way I did, and now we're locked in combat, and I don't get my strength bonuses, and he's got a 2-up armor save, and the only thing I have going for me is just static combat res, and a great armor save. So I'm a little bit worried there. So this is his turn. He doesn't have a whole lot left. He can move around. He's got that warrior unit kind of in the lower left that he's going to turn and threaten to charge the flank of my errant unit should they stand. on the left-hand side. So I had 2 Pegasus Knights at full health, standing there having failed their charge on the bolt thrower. So he turns his organ gun to the side, rolls a 2, decides to re-roll it, rolls an 8 on those poor little chicken riders. I don't remember how many wounds he did some wounds, but didn't kill everybody, so his quarterers shot at it, and I was down to 1 guy with 1 wound. He turned his bolt thrower and shot and missed. So I think it took a whole lot of shooting in that 1 unit, and they absorbed it about as well as I could have hoped. So this is him having turned his warrior unit. You see he has a warrior unit on the left-hand side that really just isn't contributing much of anything. But anyway, I'm worried about the Ironbreaker combat because it's going to get real ugly if his Lord and that warrior unit come into the flank of that Knights Errant unit. But because mainly of combat res, I don't know if I killed anybody, but I had so much combat res, I did break him, and since I had equal unit strength with my BSB unit and the Errant unit, we rolled a die and determined they would flee away from the BSB unit. That brought my Knights Errant unit into the front of that warrior unit, and then of course I slid them to maximize combat. So that's what that's looking like. In the upper right, that 1 lone horribly painted knight is he's just a casualty. I forgot to take off the board. So there we have it. We have my Knights Errant unit. They're in combat with his Lord's warrior unit. My BSB unit was not in the flank arc. If they were in the flank arc of his Lord's unit, I would have come into that battle. But that not being the case, I didn't want to waste a turn moving, so I just went in and charged the flank of the other warrior unit, moving my men-at-arms, just hoping next turn that they can get the charge into the flank of the warriors and lend me some of the static combat res that I need to win that. You can see my Pegasus Knight, and he did make this charge, of course, with the bolt thrower, and my Knights Errant at the top middle are locked in combat. My Grail Knights at the top right are locked in combat with the Slayer. He issued a challenge, and so I'm not getting all my attacks, just 1 guy. And of course my General is still having a pillow fight down here with the miners. So in turn 4, the same turn, you can see my Knights Errant came in, they killed 4 of those guys. That's my daughter's idea of a flair for the dramatic. So I killed 4, he killed 1 of mine, but with his outnumber, his 3 ranks, he wins combat by 1. Errants have a leadership of 7, so I needed a 6 or lower, failed it. My BSB was within 12 inches, I still failed it on my second try, and those guys almost got ran down by Dwarfs. He was 1 inch shy. That just would have been the biggest humiliation for those guys. Cavalry unit being run down by Dwarfs. Anyway, grr. So, meanwhile, my BSB unit, who came into the flank of the other unit of Dwarves, yeah, they did what they should do. Totally crushed them, ran them down. So when it came to the 5th turn for the Dwarfs, there really just wasn't much left. He did have his big unit of warriors with his Lord. They charged my fleeing Knights Errant, who had to flee some more, but for the most part didn't do a whole lot. You can see my lone Pegasus Knight on the hill killed his bolt thrower crew, overran into the organ gun. My other Knights unit are still locked in combat with the Thunderers on the left-hand side. General's still slugging it out with those miners. So on my turn, now it was actually turn 5. Both of us thought it was turn 6. I mean, I think the game lasted like 3.5 hours, so I just wasn't trying to do a whole lot. It was the last turn. So this is really how it ended. My Knights Errant didn't run off the board, but they didn't rally either, so I took them off the board thinking it was the last turn of the game. I have a couple Pegasus still in combat, the Knights Errant are still in combat, General's still in combat, but for the most part, it was a pretty convincing win by the Bretonnians. And so we just called it there. We didn't add up points. I'm pretty sure it was a massacre between all the units I still have and all that he's lost. Couple table quarters, couple banners. So anyway, that was the game. In terms of feedback to my son, I told him he needs to keep his dwarves together. You can't let me especially get flank charges on you. But besides that, I mean, he had some really unlucky rolling with his shooting, and I had some I had some very important moments where I had pretty decent rolling with my combat. Certainly not all of my combat. But that was it. Hope you enjoyed it.